The best lawyers aren't found in the big law firms. They're found in the stories of those who left. Hello, listeners and viewers of the Sell.Life podcast. Another episode, another story of a lawyer who's left traditional law. Mohammed Kheir. Mohammed, I met probably 6-9 months ago, earlier this year, trying to convince him to not give up his firm, but to bring his firm and his aspirations into a consultancy. He has decided not to, and I'm excited to talk about his journey into this business because it's personal injury, which is not an easy one to get started in. So Mohammed, firstly, welcome.
Thanks for being
on the show.
Thank you.
And all right, first question everyone gets. Let's go back to the beginning. When did you decide to become a lawyer, and what was the decision making? Like, why did you decide to study law?
I think it was already decided for me before I even had the chance to decide, because I come from a family of lawyers. So my cousins in the generation beforehand sort of broke barriers. My parents are immigrants, came here in the 70s. But they had me when they were much older, so I fit into the wrong generation. But either way, that generation, they sort of broke ground. Our parents came to Australia back in the 70s, all, labour, hard work, dirty fingers, all that sort of stuff. And so my cousins were able to sort of, really successfully break that barrier, send us, they started going to uni. So that sort of laid the platform for my family and my age. So there was a law firm. They'd opened a law firm. My cousin was actually the first Lebanese Muslim lawyer in Australia, I think it was. And so that sort of laid the platform for us. And we sort of, growing up, looked at him and went, well, that's what we got to do, right? You see, it was the first time with, someone in a suit, driving a shiny car, whatever it was. But it was nice because it was very different. And I think that was a big influence on a lot of people my age in my family. So a lot of us did end up going through law. And I think even through high school, even in year 7, year 8, year 9, it was always known, Mohammed's going to do law. He wants to do law. Yep. I never considered anything else. I mean, except when I was 7 and I wanted to be a paleontologist. But, apart from that, no, law was the only option for me right from the very beginning, I think.
Yeah, wow. And so you had that track. So was it like had to knuckle down at school, make sure you get the grades to get in, because you knew, like, I studied law late and realized they didn't even ask me what my grades were in year 12 because I was like mid-20s. They were just like, have you lived a little? Do you have a life? And I was like, oh, wait, so I can still study even though I didn't get good grades. But were you like, I got to get the top grades through high school?
I think I was always street smart as opposed to book smart. And I figured out very early on that the course I wanted to do, it was called the LPAB Law Extension Committee or something like that, was a part-time course. And the entry quota was get accepted into any uni for any degree and you can come to the LPAB. And I went, when you got to pick your options for UAI or whatever it was, I picked the lowest ATAR required for any course. And it was, I can't remember what it was. It was like an environmental science in Albury. And I was like, yep. And I needed like 55. So I basically coasted through high school, not really caring. I got the 55 at least, which was good. But the LPAB was a fantastic course, in my opinion, because it's a more difficult course than your standard, Bachelor of Law. It's a diploma in law. And it's night classes or weekend classes only. There's no one-on-ones, no tutes, no, group assignments. It's you and the course material, one assignment, one exam. That was the course. And I think it weeded out the people who didn't really want to do law, who were just there trying to do law. But if you were stubborn enough and persistent enough, you'd get through the course. It was like a war of attrition, basically, that course. I wasn't always the bright academic student, but I did know that law was where I wanted to end up for sure.
Yeah. And then so doing the actual course, were you, because it's nights and weekends, were you working your way through
full time? Yeah, as I said, my cousins have a law firm, mixed practice, but the partner I was working under was personal injury. So I basically, I was very, very, very lucky. I don't like to consider myself a Nepo baby, but I was very lucky in that I walked out of high school into a job as an admin assistant at a law firm. And I stayed at that firm for about 9 years. So I worked my way from there in that same system from admin all the way up to, junior lawyer. And that's when so basically I all through uni was working full time and just going to night classes.
Yeah, wow. And so were you the kind, because I know I wasn't, were you the kind that was getting, well, we call them GPAs up here, 7 high distinctions and that sort of thing? Or was it just, I need to get the ticket, the piece of paper? That's what, for me, I just needed the piece of paper so I could ask for admission into the
I think
profession.
my highest mark was, funnily enough, in torts. And I think I got like a 60. So and that was literally my highest mark of the 4 or 5 years of uni. So I really did not, I did just enough to get the paper. I think that's what it was. But the funny thing was when we got to PLT, that's where I think practical experience shines through more than theoretical knowledge. And in PLT, it was a breeze. Like I was looking at the other people in there going, this is basic stuff, but a lot of them hadn't been in a firm, hadn't worked in a firm the last few years in a firm. And we were looking at it, and I was like, we got someone who's graduated high distinction, honor roll, master's law in University of Sydney. And realistically, they can't apply any of that to the practical learning. It was a double-edged sword. Obviously, knowledge-wise, probably not as advanced as others, but in terms of experience and practicality and learning, actually working in a firm, thankfully, I think I was quite far ahead.
Yeah, and so first few years, obviously admitted, and then stayed at your family's firm.
I think for about a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
decided, was it just you wanted to sort of branch out to get some experience from other firms? Or
at that point, I was very, very comfortable. And I think that probably affected my work quality as well. I'm pretty sure my old boss would say that as well, and that I was very comfortable, very complacent, wasn't really aiming very high. So if you had asked me at that point, did I think I'd open up in the future, it would have been absolutely not. But Jason, you know a lot about this. Having a wife that's driven and motivates you and supports you is a huge factor. And my wife was sort of like, what are we going to do? Like, this is, you got to aim forward, you got to aim higher, this, that. So thankfully, I was like, you know what? It's time for a change. I took the dive, which was, I think, very unexpected for everyone, including myself. And at that point, it was just like, well, let's just see what's out there. And I think I was disenchanted with personal injury and whether I wanted to do personal injury in the long run. I didn't know if I'd end up in a different field. And really, I had no idea where I was going. I'd only ever done, personal injury with dabbling in other mixed practice stuff throughout. We took the dive, made a change to another boutique firm in Western Sydney, which didn't last long, I have to say. I was only there for about 8 months, but didn't really do anything to dispel what the negative thoughts I had about personal injury. It actually exacerbated them, in my opinion. So I was like, okay, well, this is definitely not the place to do it. I didn't leave a very comfortable situation for somewhere where I wasn't comfortable. And that's when I decided to make a jump. Well, I got very, very lucky in that an opportunity opened at a bigger firm. It's called Bryden's Lawyers in Liverpool, which a lot of people would know because they sponsored the Blues and sponsored the Tigers and all that sort of stuff. So they were a bigger firm. And that to me was like, okay, this is it. Is it personal injury or not? And if it doesn't work out at Bryden's, I'm moving on. I'm doing something else, whether it's law in a different field or finding something else to do, but I just was not happy. And I'm one of the very lucky few who found the role and loved it, absolutely loved it. I thought it was a fantastic fit for me and where I was. It threw me quite far ahead of where I probably was in terms of experience. So I was basically put in a position that was, I think I had lawyers under me that were more qualified than me. So I was put in the sink or swim situation of, okay, do well or that's it, And you don't have the comfort of being in a suburban firm. You don't have the comfort of being in a family firm. It's you the results speak for themselves. Get the results coming or, be shown the door. And I think that challenge really changed a lot of who I am as a lawyer and as a person. It pushed me to be a lot more driven, a lot more motivated, and a lot more committed to the work itself. And thankfully, I worked in a workplace where I felt respected and seen and heard, and my whatever commentary I had was listened to, the feedback was responded to, and that obviously gives you a lot of confidence as a lawyer and a employee as well. And I think it was about halfway through my time at Bryden's where I went, okay, I can do this. I can do this for myself. I know I have the knowledge now. We've built up, I have the experience. I basically known how to run a firm, or not how to run a firm, but how to work in a firm from the ground up, from admin all the way up to a team leader, reporting only to the principal. So yeah, that was really where that kicked in. It was once I jumped out, had some experience, seen different ways of doing it, and then going, okay, this is for me, and I am good at it. Let's do it.
Yeah. So going back, what was because you said it was a bit like I don't know the word almost disillusioning, the personal injury. What about it was disillusioning? And then what sort of flipped? Was it the challenge, like of I need to run a team now, or was it the actual dealing with clients? What was causing the burnout?
So personal injury, you know what you get with clients, right? So you're working with working class people who have really had a really rough time of it, right? And they're rough around the edges, they're hurt, they're in pain, no one's listening, no one's helping. So you're getting these people who are either very aggressive or very sad or just really lost, right? So yes, you're going to have your mixed bag of clients who are easier to deal with and clients who are more difficult to deal with. But across the board, at every firm I've worked for, the demographic is the same, right? So you learn to deal with the clients. I think it was more how each firm runs, where I started, in my brain was thinking, well, if I had my choice, I wouldn't do it like that. I'd do it differently. And lawyers have a reputation. I mean, not amongst other lawyers, but the general public seem to think that lawyers are leeches. They're just trying to, blood-sucking sharks trying to get as much money out of the client as possible. And some law firms do more to dispel that theory than others. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like, okay, well, personal injury is a very empathetic area of law. It has to be, if you're approaching it as a dollars game, for me, you're just not doing it right, because it really isn't about the dollars. I measure my success not in dollars, but in client satisfaction. For me, if the client at the end of the day says, "Thank you, Mohammed, you've changed my life," we've changed his life in a very small way. Money's not the be all and end all of things, but when you're able to provide that reprieve, that relief, that help, that's realistically how I measure satisfaction for a personal injury client. So when you have practices that go, okay, well, we're not really worried about satisfaction. How quickly can we move this matter? How quickly can we get this matter to a settlement conference? How little disbursements can we spend to get this matter to the point where we can get rid of it? And that for me is like, it's I don't know how else to say, but didn't feel right, with some of the places, some of the things I'd seen. And that's not any disrespect to other law firms. Some of these firms have been very, very successful doing what they do, and they get great results. But for me, I was like, well, that's really not why I do it, at the end of the day. Yep. And really the amount of money that these bigger firms are making and things like that, it was sort of like, well, you can still put quality as the priority and be a profitable business. There's nothing that the two aren't, they don't clash.
Yep.
So yeah, that's where I sort of went, okay, well, the practices that I'm seeing probably aren't the way I'd do it, but also I wanted the freedom. I wanted the freedom to sort of, be at home with my daughter, or if my wife had a doctor's appointment, take my wife to the doctor's appointment, or even my mate called me and said he wants to go for a round of golf. Well, yeah, let's go, and these are all little side things, but, having that as an option is, something that everyone wants, that freedom of time to control their own life.
Yeah. And so you had, taste of the different firms, but you stuck with the personal injury. And then was the decision to start, was that like a slow burn and you were planning? Because obviously in personal injury, this is why we were talking so much about the consultancy program. There is a long time between the client getting paid and therefore you getting paid.
Yes.
And so I don't know many people. I'm from a small country town. I don't know many people who have a trust fund that can set them up for a few years' salary while they wait for these clients' payments, because personal injury has the best offer in law, no win, no fee. How long did you sort of plan to build?
I genuinely, Jason, it was just one day the light bulb just went, I'm really good at this. And I really connect with my clients. Like I've always been very good. Like you said, it's a sales thing, right? But a lot of the clients I've had, even now since MK Allan opened, I've formed relationships where they'll just call me just to tell me how they're going. And that's just because that's the way I've always approached each client, giving them the respect and the time to hear their story. So you build these relationships, and I thought, well, I'm very good at that. And this firm, we're making quite good money on these new clients and things like that. And I went, well, what's to stop us from actually doing it ourselves or myself? And you touched on it. The biggest drawback or the biggest risk with personal injury is you're really respectively not going to get paid for at least 6 months. And that's if you get lucky with a matter that processes really quickly, like a TPD matter or something like that. Otherwise, for the most part, a general slip and fall claim or a general car accident claim is taking anywhere between 12 and 24 months on average. So I had to do this thing where I was like, well, I've got a young family, I've got a mortgage. How the hell do you balance the desire to do something that big with, realistically, at least 6 months of no income coming in? So it was I think every self-employed lawyer will tell you that it's a wacky, wild, incredibly crazy journey that you take to get to where you need to get to. And I made mistakes along the way. There were things I would have done, probably would have done differently, but there are things that I could have approached differently. But yeah, once I decided, it was sort of like, okay, it's just about planning to be able to take that risk and take on that risk and feel confident that at the end of 12 months I wasn't homeless. So yeah, thankfully, it did work.
Yeah. But in the first, because you launched, was it late last year or started this year?
Let's say late last year.
Yeah.
Because obviously this is something that I think I had a joke to you about when you posted on LinkedIn that it was, I can't remember what the word you used was, but pre-planning the opening of your business by still employed.
I think I said build it, quietly. I think I called it a quietly building the rocket ship, yeah.
So I think I started quietly building in late last year in terms of really trying to go, okay, well, I need to start setting things up in terms of clients, things like that. And then the quiet building became loud building in around January. And that's where we went helter-skelter in terms of, okay, let's just go get this client. Because my employment ended in January this year. And that's basically the same day I was like, okay, let's go get it. And for 3 months, it was just like finding every network referral, every sort of connection I could make daily, trying to get, okay, well, I need to build this practice. And a lot of luck involved. But thankfully, we were able to sign a fair bit, a fair few clients. And thankfully, the practice is very healthy now, almost 8 months on. So it's been good.
Well, I want to touch on it because I'm always intrigued by when people call it luck, because in my experience, I do consider myself lucky, but I guess as I've gotten older, I've realized a lot of that luck was through the hard work I did 6 months before. So what you thought were lucky breaks during the first few months?
It's hard to say. I mean, I got put in touch with some fantastic people who realistically, I mean, you meet very few genuine people in life, I think. But when you do, you sort of know what you're getting. So I was very lucky to have friends in the law space that weren't personal injury lawyers. And they were sort of like, hey, everything we get that's not in our wheelhouse, we'll send to you. And, that's what I mean by luck. It was just the good graces and, the courtesy and respect of other lawyers that sort of went, we'll take care of you. We know what it's like to open a firm. We'll make sure we'll do what we can do. And, that's really when I started, that's what started building me confidence, because I was getting referrals and I was like, okay, well, they're not matters they're going to settle anytime soon, but we're getting out there and people are listening and people are helping. And so there was a big community, I think, effort. And that's where I think the luck came from, because if I didn't have that community effort, I'd probably be on half the files I have now. But yeah, look, that was, I think, that first law firm that helped me out. I was sort of like, okay, that I felt at peace a lot. And then obviously we were also able to stack chips in other areas in terms of getting, work in superannuation and things like that. And again, got very lucky in that some of them were able to process quite quickly and efficiently. And that actually gave us the lifeblood to actually run, and it removed I like to tell people that when I started, I had very little, surplus funds just for living. And when we started, it was here, then we went all the way down to about here. And then the day you got to here, we were able to resolve the matter. and then it went back up again, and then it happened again. And all through this, you're watching, going, oh God, how am I going to survive in 3 months' time? And the second we got to here, back up again. And then because we've been very, very lucky with the quality of the claims and the quality we've been able to give our clients in terms of processing claims quicker, efficiently, we were able to go bang, bang, bang. And now we're in the position where, okay, we're comfortable. Now we can focus on growth. Now we can focus on taking those next steps from being just a self-employed lawyer to going, okay, well, we need, a law firm. We need teams. We need how much more work can we take on? And now now we're at the stage where it's like, okay, we don't want to sacrifice quality for quantity. And so it's about still building slowly and preparing for what's to come and what we're planning for.
And keeping those values, which I think is great. And yeah, the luck, and that's as I was hearing it, I was like, yeah, so the luck, one of the quotes I like to live by is goodwill. I think Warren Buffett said it, goodwill compounds faster than any interest, anything in the world. And I think you're right, meeting genuine people, maybe I'm naive, or maybe I think it's what you put out there, because I feel like I'm fortunate enough to meet a lot of good, genuine people like yourself. And I think it comes back to you in ways you'd never really expect. And I think, yeah, you being able to do what you've done in the last 8 months and then being willing to share it, because you're very open about, which brings me to the Self-Employed Lawyers League. You're very open about, hey, just because I'm succeeding, there's no limitation on how much good work's out there. Even if you're in personal injury, there's enough.
I've told you this before, Jason. I don't think there's any risk with people opening up small firms, even in my space. Like a friend of mine opened up around the same time I did. And I share my precedents, I share my experience, I share my processes. I really don't care. At the end of the day, what's the work that's going to find its way to me, it's going to find its way to me. And, that's one of those things about just because you have a client doesn't mean it was going to end up my client. If anything, it probably would have ended up at a big firm. And so, what risk do I have helping people where I can? I mean, like you said, it's a goodwill thing. It goes around, comes around. If you help people in your time, when they're in their time of need, it'll come back around. And I've seen that in spades. It really is. It's like charity, right? Where I know there's a scientific fact that the more you give in charity, the more profitable your business is. I don't know. No one knows what the correlation is, but it's one of those things where goodwill begets goodwill.
Yep. Yeah, and it builds. And I am studying it more because obviously I'm data driven, and I love to figure out there must be a science or something behind it, or there's something deeper going on. And I think that's where, like you said, it's at the start. It doesn't have to be a profitable business. Doesn't have to be mutually exclusive from doing good in the community. Because I'm a big proponent of every individual, and for me, it's in business. Like I was very competitive in sport for my entire life. Thought I was going to do professional soccer. That's what I wanted to be, till I found business, and then I was like, oh, this is like, it just lit me up inside. Like I felt like I became a full human almost. And then I met Courtney and it opened up further. But I think business and the self-employment journey you've gone on, it's about finding out who you are as an individual, and then how can we effectively monetize it so you can do the most good. Because I think, and you seem to have found that in the last year since you started the business, but you know exactly who you are. And I think once you find out, I know who I am, and also I'm comfortable and confident in who I am, suddenly you're like, oh, I don't have a scarcity mindset because there's only one of me. I'm the only one who can be me and do what I can do. And whatever that attracts from a business sense is what it attracts. And if it goes elsewhere, that's fine. It wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, circling back to the point you made earlier about the light bulb moment or things like that. I mean, obviously there was a sort of switch up where I thought, okay, I can do that. But there also was other factors in terms of being heard and being seen and things like that. So there was I speak very openly about this. Palestinian genocide has been going on for many years now, right? And whilst I was employed in my last employer, I felt restricted in my voice. Like I couldn't just send out an email, requesting donations or trying to, raise awareness for a cause I care very deeply about. And I went, you can't do that when you're employed. I mean, you can't, because you're at risk of upsetting people. You're at risk of, economic risks, which, your employer obviously won't be happy about. And I went, for lack of a, how do you put your voice out there? How do you support the causes you want to support, and both financially and personally. And for me, that was like the money. Obviously, wanting financial freedom and wanting personal freedom was a big thing. But that's where I went. Oh, I got to do this now. I got to do this now because I need to be able to throw my weight behind things I care about. And that was a big thing. And it's still going to this day, of course. And anyone who broaches the topic with me, I'm very passionate and very vocal about it. And I don't feel that risk of upsetting anyone or, power brokers being unhappy with certain things. And that was also a big part of it as well.
Yeah. No, and that to me, it's, I've written on the topic a lot, obviously, because I write almost daily on LinkedIn about it. But self-employment to me is deeper than any. It's one of those things that to me underlies you cannot be your full self until you almost are there, because then you do have the means of production. You are the means that puts the roof over your head, that puts the food on the table for your family, that keeps everything, all those basic human needs that need to be fulfilled. If you are self-employed, you can do that. But then most importantly, you can speak freely. You do have to bear the consequences, but you can speak freely. And secondly, you control the next 24 hours. And for me, everyone says it's one day at a time. You can't predict the future. You can't change the past. So it's the only thing that matters is the next 24 hours. And I like how you say, I can drive my daughter to school. Like I drive my son to school, pick him up every day. Me and Courtney do it together now, and it's amazing. Yesterday, we could take a few hours off in the morning, and I can work at night doing recordings, making courses, because we set the 24-hour timeline. It's hard to find something that actually gives that freedom.
I mean, my daughter's quite young. She's 4. She's still in daycare. But every morning now, it's a routine. We get a baby chino, we sit together, we have a laugh, and I take her to school. And that was never an option when I was employed. Never, right? Because you got to be at work a certain time. Where are you? Why aren't you at your desk? Whatever it was. And again, it's a very human thing. I find now, especially living in Sydney or a major city anywhere in the world at the moment, it's so financial. It's so robotic that humans are sort of forgetting to live. And even that small experience every day that's, innocuous, not really something big. But in terms of what that does for your spirit and your mental health, huge, absolutely huge. And there are moments that you're never going to regret. You're never going to regret taking an hour off in the morning to spend time with your kid. And again, you're not answering to anyone. You answer the calls when you get back to your desk. You do it at night. You make up the lost time, and you have that freedom. And that is very much, I think, what you touched on earlier. You can't be your true self. You can't live your true life, the one you want to live, until you have control of your day, your 24 hours. That's the best way to put it.
No. Well, on that topic, because I like to ask everyone this, you are a founding member of the Self-Employed Lawyers League.
I am.
So give me knowing this isn't live, so I can always edit this if it's horrible what you say. Give me your view of the Self-Employed Lawyers League, how it's working and where you see it going.
Okay. Well, I told you this the other day, Jason, where the only reason I was entertaining the consultancy firm was because you came across really personable and you sort of knew where my head was at. You knew exactly what I was looking for in terms of growing and networking and things like that. And then obviously I said, when we had the meeting with the actual partner, didn't go well, didn't like it. It sort of steered me away. It sort of was the antithesis of the way you and I were speaking, and that turned me off. And then you texted me a couple of weeks ago, and I was actually broken down in the M8 tunnel at the time because my tires just decided to blow out. And I went, oh, fuck, I'll get back to him later. And then a couple of days later, obviously, having completely forgotten, you're like, I can't believe you didn't respond to me. I can't remember what you said. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, put me down. I'll sign up right now. I mean, the second your name came up, I'm a big believer in what you do. I'm a big believer in what you sell, pun intended. But you knew exactly what it was that I think we needed as self-employed lawyers in terms of that social aspect, professional aspect, networking aspect, and really giving up zero creative control or any control whatsoever of our own firms. And I've found, even in the few weeks that I've been involved, it's been exactly as promised. And where I see it going, I'll be honest with you, it's sort of limitless in a way. It's sort of like a social media for lawyers. looking for both networking, social, communication. And I think it's big, not just because obviously on the networking side of things, who doesn't need more, lead referrers? Who doesn't need to be out there more? And you've sort of broken down barriers for people who probably aren't naturally inclined. I think I am naturally inclined to be quite a social person and networking person, as you probably know by now. But other people sort of need that comfort space, and I think you provide that for people who ordinarily wouldn't put themselves out there. So there's that networking aspect, and then there's a social aspect. A self-employed lawyer, especially, I can speak from experience. The first 8 months, very lonely experience, and there's only so much your wife can handle having to listen to you rant about your anxiety and stresses and matters and case law and things like that. So I definitely needed an outlet in terms of being able to just say, hey, this is what's going on, this is what's working for me, this is what's not working for me. And I think Cell provides that as well in terms of being able to just go, when we have those Thursday networks, to just say, hey guys, this is what's going on. And someone's listening. And that's not to say my wife doesn't listen. She listens an extraordinary amount to me yapping. But it's sort of like, okay, well, these are people that are going through the same thing. And you can connect with them on the human level in terms of, okay, well, this is what I'm going through. Are you feeling that? And if you did feel that, how did you get rid of it? Or how did you increase it? Whatever it was. But yeah, because I can tell you the first 6 months of this venture was crippling anxiety before it became, okay, we've made the right move. I don't think I ever thought it was the wrong move, but it was sort of like the whole time, is it going to work? Is it going to work? Is it going to work? And then suddenly it starts working. You're like, oh, thank God,
Yep.
So being able to share that experience with other people, very helpful.
Yeah. No, and I enjoy it. And Tuesday and Thursday, whenever we do it, I always see, it's kind of cool to see. And that's why Courtney's keeping an eye on everyone and can see like when someone's like, oh, and I went through this and the anxiety, and I share it. After 20 years in sales, I still get the anxiety. Is people going to take my product or whatever we're selling? And you'd see everyone around the room like, oh, yes, you can see them.
Yeah,
yes, it's not just me. We all have that. And I think just realizing that, it's normal. We're all humans, remember? We all have to go through those things. But, you get locked in your own head, your own thinking sometimes. So,
no, absolutely.
No, it's wonderful.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, I'm a big proponent. I think the second you told me about it, I really didn't care what the product was, Jason, because I know you wouldn't put your name to something that you didn't 100% believe in and didn't have conviction in. So as soon as you said, hey, do you want to sign up for this? I was like, yeah, simple as that. And look, it's exactly as you described. And I think I think really the ceiling is limitless. I don't know where it's going to end up. But there are times where I'm sitting there looking at going, this could really become like a huge movement, because even in Western Sydney now, you're seeing so many people going, I don't need big law, I'll just do it myself. And it's fantastic. I'm a huge fan of it. And obviously not every lawyer is as good as another lawyer or whatever it was, but being able to provide a support system like this, would help a lot of people, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh, and I can see, and that was the vision behind it, because I was interviewing so many lawyers like you who didn't want to give up creative control, is probably the best way to phrase it. But I was like, there's someone like me. I'm a very good salesman, and there's someone like me in every traditional firm out there in every networking room. But what I noticed when I was in the networking rooms, there was always 3 or 4 sole practitioners, and they were always kind of stressed, a bit frazzled, because they have to do absolutely everything. And so the theory in my mind was like, hold on, if there's 3 or 4 in every room and we can somehow map them together, that means there's a sole practitioner in every networking event all over Australia at all times. And they all want to support each other, because if you're a small business, you do want to support other small businesses. It's just human nature. So therefore, and you're right. And we are figuring out where could this go, because I haven't yet seen the limitation. There's a lot of sole practitioners out there. And as everyone finds their niche, which for me is finding out who you are as an individual lawyer, you don't feel like there's a scarcity mindset, because you're like, I only need like this many clients per year, and there's 100 times that. 80% of them are still going to traditional firms. So-and-so who's in personal injury as well isn't competing with me. We're competing with the ones spending millions on Google ads and everything.
Yeah. Well, it's something I said to the friend of mine that opened recently as well, and I sort of said, the big firms can have a piece of cake each. Let them take a piece of the cake. For us as small firms, we don't need a whole slice. We need a sliver. And you're talking about a super successful practice, a crumb. And so, like, there's no need to fight. There's plenty of crumbs, you know. And I don't mean to equate my clients with crumbs by any means, but what I'm saying is, like, it really doesn't take much to go out and be successful on your own, if you know, with a bit of luck and a bit of hard work. So yeah, look, and at the end of the day, the big firms are always going to get their piece because that's what they do. And I think, touching on what you said before about small business supporting small businesses, the big firms are just looking to crush everyone, right? Whereas what we're doing is we're trying to uplift each other and each other's companies. And, you know, together, you know, it helps. I mean, if you're not referring your work off to a big firm, you're referring it to another self-employed lawyer or a small business, why not? And there's really no harm in it. There's no drama. And I think it benefits everyone.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. So MK Allan, by the way, the Allan, I don't know if I've asked you this before.
I don't
the
know
name. I always love asking people about how they named their firm.
So,
is the Allan? Where's the Allan from?
Okay. Well, my name's Mohammed, and I'm based in Western Sydney. And it wouldn't be we're nationwide now, especially with superannuation. And we're talking to people in rural Western Australia, Northern Territory, Cairns, Sydney, you know, Jindabyne, wherever it is, right? So there was a very practical approach to it, going, okay, well, if you name him Mohammed, no one's going to answer the phone, right? It's simple as that. And my dad, when he came to Australia in the 70s, took the name Allan. And purely, in the most appropriate way I could say it was to appeal to white people, I thought MK Allan. And it worked. I mean, it's worked thus far. And some people might know me as Mick. I've never been known as Mick in my entire life. Well, funnily enough, these are the challenges you come up when you're a self-employed lawyer. Like I said, we were getting clients from all over Australia. And I think when they were getting an email or a message from Mohammed, it sent a lot of, I don't know, people were just unsure. I wouldn't say, I don't always equate it to prejudice. I sometimes equate it to people just don't know any better. They don't have much experience with someone like Mohammed. They might think it's a telemarketer. They might think it's someone who doesn't, not from Australia, whatever it might be. But I remember the person who was helping me get the name out there is like, he was a white guy as well. And, you know, we're good mates. And he goes, I don't want you to think I'm racist, right? But can we try something with your name? And I go, well, what do you want to do? And he goes, oh, can we try a more Caucasian name? Let's see what happens. And we actually doubled the contact rate for the clients we were able to contact overnight. People getting text messages from Mick responded more than to Mohammed. So, you know, but I'm a silver linings kind of guy. What I've actually found is I've broken down barriers like that. Because once they know me as Mick, they get the emails from Mohammed and they go, oh, who's Mohammed? Oh, it's me. Oh, we just go by Mick. And it sort of changes that landscape. And they go, okay, Mohammed's a normal person. Mohammed's from Australia, you know, helping, he's a lawyer. So it was breaking down those prejudices. And I think MK Allan tied into that. But I also wanted to honour my father in a way because, you know, he came to Australia, put in a lot of years, and he was never a lawyer. He's never been involved with the legal profession. But that was my way of sort of honouring his contribution to my life as well.
It's amazing. And it's an amazing, you're right, it is the way to break down. Because I don't know, my view on prejudices and that, it's usually from a place of ignorance, from a place of, which ignorance is not on, like, they're purposely being ignorant. It's just, if you grew up in a town, like I grew up in a small town, there wasn't many Mohammeds there. We moved to the city, plenty of Mohammed. And like, you open up and you expand your horizons. But if you had only lived in that little town and only seen that this is
news.
The news.
Yes. And
again, quicker people get off that. But so the way you're doing it is it's incredible because, it allows people to get to know you. And then in a way, like, that's a big impact you're having. And being free to do it. It's sad that you have to do it, but it's also long term. I think you can see this long term. That's gonna pave a good pathway.
It's very much what you said. I don't look at it as just out and out racism. I don't look at it like that. I look at it as, okay, their only exposure is to distorted news or distorted, you know, stories that are just completely and utterly ridiculous, right? So that's their experience of someone whose name might be Mohammed. But we're talking about someone who probably lives in a town of 5,000 people and has never left their country town. And you go, okay, well, let's just introduce them to Mick, and then Mohammed comes in later and by that point, you're their lawyer. Nobody cares. At that point, they're like, oh, who cares? It's just a name, right? And I'm born and raised in Australia. I watch the footy. You know, it's not like, you know, we come from different walks of life. I mean, we have the same interests. We live the same lives. We're all going through the same things. So my religion and my ethnicity really shouldn't prejudice. And I don't think it does. I really do think you just have to break down that barrier. Let them know that they're talking to a normal person. Let them know that everything they've heard is not as it seems. Because, you know, I'm definitely not one to sort of advocate for my religion, things like that. My religion speaks for itself. I'm a very proud Muslim. It is a very, 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 very big part of my life, if not the biggest. So my job is not to judge. My job is not to influence. My job is just to be like, this is what we bring. And those prejudices remove themselves naturally, I found.
I'm thinking that when you meet people, when you just meet people, which is, a great way to approach life, but also a great way to approach your business. Meet people where they're at and take them on the journey. You go on the journey. That's what, to me, a good conversation is. You go on the journey together, see where we end up.
Yeah, no, and I got sidetracked a bit from the point of the business, but that's just my experience, I think, the first 8 months. And it's a challenge you don't think – you face a lot – when you open up, you face a lot of challenges you don't think you're going to face. And when that came up, obviously, after the first few times, I was like, okay, well, there's two ways I can take this. I can be seriously offended, or I could just basically turn it to my advantage and actually be an advocate for my name, which is much, much bigger than me as a person. So like you said, it's a much bigger thing, and I don't claim to be, you know, noble or anything like that. But that was my little way of being, okay, this is how I can make it, I can influence as well in a positive way.
Yeah. No, and that's why I'm excited to see where MK Allan goes, because for me, to bring it a full circle into the business is about, it's as close to the scientific method as possible, because every day you have to pose a hypothesis and then you have to get slapped in the face with the data of that was either wrong or right. And if it was wrong, you're going to starve. And if it was right, you have to figure out, was my hypothesis right, or was there other factors that affected it? And so every day you're facing the scientific method head on. Hypothesis, prove it wrong, prove it right, double down on it the next day. And the fact you're willing to just, in a situation that's so personal, to go, well, okay, the data says this, so this is what I'll do next, and then open it up, you're set for some big things. So the next few years, and how do people get a hold of MK Allan, and what's the next sort of steps for MK Allan now?
So I'm a very contactable lawyer, for lack of a better word. I try to make myself as accessible to my clients as possible, which a lot of personal injury lawyers will tell you is probably a mistake, because there can be, I mean, every field of law has high maintenance clients who constantly need updates or advice or whatever it is. But I find that's how I've created a situation where I'm contactable and accessible, and that means they don't go looking for another lawyer. They're not looking for advice anywhere else. They know they've got me. They know they've got me on the text message. They've got me by email. Then they can just give me a call. If I don't answer straight away, they know I'm going to call them back. You know, they've got my direct mobile number. So anyone who wants to call me, my number's on my website. Obviously, the website's up and running. The website is also, I think, a shrine to self-employed lawyers, because I've built that website from the ground up. And like most self-employed lawyers, you wear 1,000 different hats. And that website is a testament to it, because I had to learn how to design a website from start to finish. You know, we learned how to do the logo I designed myself, everything. So it's a bit of a side point. But the website, we have an Instagram, which realistically is just there for exposure. But otherwise, pretty much contactable in any way that's fit for a client. Email, text, mobile, whatever. And in terms of accessibility, I'm based in Sydney, and I have serviced offices across the state, so we can meet pretty much anywhere. And then same thing, interstate, like I told you before, we're pretty much a national firm now, specifically with the superannuation stuff. And we have service offices, you know, in every state. So if we need to go, we're able to come to pretty much anywhere in Australia. But the beauty of MK Allan, and something that sets us apart again from the big firms, is we are mostly a remote business. I wouldn't say it's a hybrid. I wouldn't even say it's a hybrid. Most of, you know, everything I do is mostly from home. We pass on those savings of not having overheads, not having these, you know, rent and all this sort of stuff, where me and my staff can just go, hey, we'll pass those savings on to you. I can whenever I speak to a client, I can confidently say, this is what the quote on fees is. I guarantee you that no one else is going to beat it. Without sight unseen, without knowing what another person is going to quote you, I can tell you this is going to be the best quote you get. And I'm so confident that if you get a quote better than it, I'll beat it by 10%. And I've never had to beat the quote, never. And I think a big part of the confidence in that strategy as well is clients go, you know what, I don't need to look for another firm. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's confident. He's willing to offer that. Let's just go ahead. And like I said, I've never had to offer that discount because, like I said, we pass on those savings to our client. Like I touched on earlier in this podcast, it's not a numbers game. It really is a satisfaction game, in my opinion. And measuring it by satisfaction brings the numbers anyway. The numbers are going to be.
It's the best way to build I call it the reputation score. And I've built out like a spreadsheet to show lawyers to say the reputation is of the last 10 clients you had, did they leave a 5-star review? Or if they're not that kind of person, did they send a referral? Or if they're not that kind of person, did they send, if it's a kind of law, repeat work? And if one of those 3 things occurred in your last 10 clients, you have a business as long as you want because it's a flywheel that will compound on itself. Yeah. However, in the reverse, if that's not happening, take a look at the service you're providing, and maybe it's not the quality that you espouse on your website, but it sounds like you've nailed that. Yeah. In the first 9 months.
In terms of the satisfaction, like for me, for example, I give a lot of free advice out. Unfortunately, it's part of the, you're not always going to get paid for the advice you give, but that actually, I think we have like 20 5-star Google reviews at the moment, and I haven't settled 20 matters, but all that free advice, clients really resonate with that. And they go, for me, that's as good as legal costs. Honest, truly, it is. Yeah. If I'm getting 5-star, there wasn't a claim, but Mohammed took the time out of his day to speak to me and gave me some advice, that really helped my situation. That for me is dollars in a different sense. Yes. So thankfully, that method of prioritizing a client satisfaction, even if it's one that you haven't signed up and one that won't sign up, or there's no case there, listening to them and hearing them out and giving them the time of day to be heard, raises those things as well. And like I said, it comes back around in different ways, not always money, but, for example, for me, Google reviews, which every time we get a 5, it's, it makes my day. So, you never realize how important Google reviews until you're self-employed and you go, oh God, it's like a boost. It's like to show you're doing something right. So, keep doing it.
Well, and it's a social proof that we all need, not only from the business side, that other people, you can say you're the best thing since sliced bread till you're blue in the face, but it only becomes true when other people say it. But the moment other people say it, it's also, for me, because you need that reminder, because again, you get stuck in your own head. We all have that, am I good enough? Am I enough? Am I good enough? So it's an amazing, journey. All right, we'll have to leave it there because we've gone well over the normal time, but I did know this one was going to go over because we always like to chat.
I love a chat. You know me.
We will have you on in the future for sure. Thank you for being a founding member, and I'll put in the show notes how people can reach out to you.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
We own our time, we own